القناة الإعلامية للبنت السورية هي الأفضل دائما.
Saboteurs attack public properties in Homs and desecrate graveyards. The Arab Peace Committee decides to address the UN over Palestinian membership. And Syrians commemorate police martyrs of May 29, 1945. Good afternoon, welcome to our news bulletin. I'm Dania Nizam. A gang of armed criminals attacked the area of Tal Dao in Homs yesterday and beat up the policeman Mohammed Eid Yassin and two of his sons, killing one of them and wounding the other. A source in the Ministry of Interior said that the policeman had to defend himself, so he killed two of the gangsters and wounded another, while the others managed to escape. The security forces are looking for the criminals to bring them to justice.
The rioters blocked the streets, wrecked the private and the public properties, threw stones using children who are supposed to be at their desks at schools or in the playgrounds, not exploited as tools in the game of sabotage, carrying stones instead of books and pens. This is the neighborhood of Al-Khalidiyya in the Homs city on Friday. The picture is clear. A group of rioters and saboteurs throwing stones at citizens, police and security forces who rushed to the scene to protect the private and the public properties. Those rioters blocked the streets in the area using stones and garbage bins. Also in the Fakhura area, many rioters cut off the streets, but this time by using sandbags or barriers, setting public cars on fire. The scene was not much different in the Bab Tedmor neighborhood, where the rioters wreaked havoc to the private properties and blocked the streets, terrorizing the innocent civilians in the area. In the following scene, the picture is more realistic than the description, talk, or the speech. It is in the Bab Tedmor cemetery, and these are the so-called freedom advocators. Even the tombs have not been spared of their damage. The rioters desecrated the dignity of the dead. No religion, laws, or moral rules can legitimize what they are doing. These tombstones will remain witnesses to their crimes that they committed under the name of freedom.
Hundreds of Syrian citizens in France held a march of solidarity with their motherland against the foreign plots of intervention in Syria's internal affairs. They expressed the depth of their loyalty and affiliation to their country and support for its unity and the reform project in order to fortify Syria and consolidate its immunity. They asserted that Syria would remain strong through the unity of its people, its stability and its key role in this region. Two Russian experts and political analysts affirmed Russia's support for Syria and its reform steps and rejection of foreign intervention in its internal affairs. They denounced the sinister media campaign against Syria.
President Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian leadership are carrying out a correct policy and taking important decisions concerning mature reforms. The Euro-American intervention in Syria and measures against it are unacceptable and harmful to the interests of the Syrian people. If they truly wanted to help these people, they should support the reforms led by President al-Assad instead of blocking them. Russia would never allow any resolution in the UN Security Council to be passed against Syria. Syria should be supported. There is a media war against Syria, and some satellite TV channels are carrying out an act of deception and falsification of facts. Russia is against any political or economic intervention in Syria's internal affairs.
Pressures on Syria are aimed at changing the line of its foreign policy in the Middle East or in the Palestinian question. This pressure is aimed at isolating Iran in the region. The Euro-American measures against Syria are unjust. Russia would never support any resolution against Syria in the United Nations Security Council. Russia also recognizes the necessity of reform in the Arab world, but such reforms should be carried out by the Arab countries themselves without any pressure or any form of foreign intervention in the internal affairs of the Arab countries.
Israeli Deputy Minister for the Development of the Galilee and Negev Affairs Ayoub al-Farah discloses that some members of the Syrian opposition contacted him asking for Israeli government intervention in support of its plots against the regime in Syria. Farah said he referred the demand to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him to use his influence in international circles to increase pressure on Syria. At the end of its emergency ministerial meeting held in Doha yesterday, the Committee of the Arab Peace Initiative decided that the peace process was facing an impasse because of the recent Israeli and American attitudes. The meeting was attended by Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, head of the Palestinian Authority. The committee decided to go to the UN to seek full membership of the State of Palestine within the lines of 1967, with Jerusalem as its capital. The committee asserted that just peace could not be achieved without full Israeli withdrawal from the occupied Arab lands, including the occupied Syrian Golan and the lands still occupied in southern Lebanon. Peace also requires a just solution to the problem of the refugees according to the relevant resolutions of international legitimacy. No partial or temporary resolutions would be accepted in this respect. Ambassador Yusuf Ahmed, the Syrian permanent representative in the Arab League, affirmed that the committee's task was not to follow up this issue. He said that the Arab attitude should not be based on reactions, because such reactions led to the resolutions that contributed to Libya's plight of death and destruction. This blocked the prospects of a political resolution ensuring Libya's unity and stability. He called for all kinds of political and financial support for the Palestinian resolution of protecting national unity. Calling upon the UN to recognize the Palestinian state as a resolution adopted by the Arab League in order to consolidate the historical right of the Palestinian people to establish their independent state in the face of a negative American attitude that has denied the original references of the peace process. The Syrian representative also asserted that the Arabs should read the contents of the American and Israeli attitudes clearly and reject all opposition to the achievement of just peace in the region. The restoration of Palestinian and Arab rights thus remain at the heart of joint Arab action.